Welcome to Your Untamed Life, the podcast bringing you stories of transformation, growth, fear, success, alignment, challenges, and more, with the intention to inspire you and light you up to find your own aligned path of transformation and let it unfold in front of you without letting fear hold you back. I'm Amanda Petra, your host and passionate human being. Without further ado, let's get started. Hello and welcome to this episode. So this episode is going to sit at the deepest part of my heart because we're going to dig deep, and we're going to talk about my journey from being Canadian to being Australian and having to leave everything and everyone I know behind. And why I wanted to cover this will just unfold throughout. So I'm just going to leave this raw and real, and let's just dive in. Okay, so my journey started why I wanted to come to Australia. Honestly, it was just this overarching feeling that I needed to be in Australia, and I knew nothing about Australia, honestly. Especially after coming here and being here, I've realized how little people outside of Australia actually know about Australia. The marketing here is incredible. What people know about Australia on the outside is such a marketed dream, and not that it's not amazing, it freaking is amazing, but it's just completely different from what you think it is until you get here. So I wanted to be here. I didn't know why. And, I was just a little Canadian girl living her best life at home. And I actually started to, find my people, find my comfort in Canada, and really have a lot of support and a lot of amazing people around me. And yet I still had this drive to leave, which I couldn't believe. But it's not like I just went from straight from Canada to Australia. I actually took small steps, and what I call small steps, around kind of the world to get here. And they really built my character and my capacity to endure problems and tribulations and stuff and deal with things on my own. And it was all just compiling to being able to be here and handle it. And I guess to be able to, run a business and handle that. And all of it has just compiled. Okay, so my journey. So when I was Canadian, I was also Hungarian, which I need to address. Like, my parents, born and bred in Budapest. My sister too was born in Budapest, and she's about 9.5 years older than me. And so they made the journey while my sister was young to move to Canada. And this put a lot of strain on my sister because they had to move to Germany for a year or two and then come to Canada, with this kind of like large migration that happened after communism slowed down. And, everything kind of started unfolding after communism was kind of over in Eastern Europe. And can you believe, like, my parents went through communism, and like, just looking back now, so much of our life was clearly affected by that, and the way that they think was affected by that. And I like, they were so strong, and they did so amazing with like the shit that they had to go through. Okay, so yeah, like, even like I've just been reflecting on like my money mindset journey, and the journey has brought me to like, there's never enough, but there's always ways to figure out like how to like survive. But I've come to the point where I don't want to just survive, I want to thrive. So I've dug deep into like their potential stories of what they were going through and how that affected them, and it's just incredible. They just did amazing, and they're so strong. And I'll dig into it a bit more in a minute. So they moved from Budapest to Germany, and then Germany to Canada, and they their journey was like my journey now that I look at it. It's just interesting, right? Little steps to get to here, but it was a lot harder for them even to just get a visa to be in Germany. My dad ended up finding out he was like 1/8. No, I think he's more German than I am, and I'm 1/8 German. So that was like their saving grace to be able to go to Germany and kind of be supported to live there. Not supported like on welfare or anything, but just be like as a refugee. Anyway, so that has built my backstory, because being in Canada, I was a foreigner. I've been a foreigner my whole life, and it's really, really starting to be apparent. I've moved to Australia, right? And I'm a foreigner again. But like now it's funny. Whereas back in Canada, being a foreigner in the 90s was not easy. There was a lot of bullying around those times. Like there still is a lot of bullying, right? But yeah, just not having the same clothes, not knowing the same, like, I don't know, day-to-day shit, the same jokes, the same everything. Like my world at home was so different than my world at school. It's really weird to think about, actually. And so actually, when I was really, really young too, like this is just an example. I, only spoke Hungarian at home, and then when I had to go to school as a child, as a preschooler, my parents thought I couldn't speak English, but I went to school, like they put me in ESL, English as a second language. But then the teachers were like, she can speak English. I don't think this was preschool, but whenever I had to start speaking, they started to realize that I could speak English. And what I did was I apparently learned English on my own through TV. So that's interesting. And now I look at that and be like, what the fuck? You so doubt yourself all the time, but like little you could even do this. Like you can do things. Anyway, so that was interesting. And that was just like, it's just a glimpse into like how different my world was. So I go home and I speak Hungarian, and I go to school and I speak English, and nothing makes sense. But so like I had a pretty good childhood till I was in like grade 2, and then we moved. I had like really good friends around my neighborhood. We lived in a court. I'd climb trees. I'd move, go out, do stuff all the time outside. And then we moved to Hamilton from Burlington, and I didn't have trees to climb. I didn't have friends to run around with, and I guess I was stressed, and I started emotionally eating and got bullied for that. So that's where sort of my bullying starts. Okay, that's just part of the journey as well, because like I was really, somehow I went from being really confident child to being completely unconfident, and I guess like that is like the seed of where my like crippling anxiety came from. This like disconnection from the world around me, I think. Not having a support system that understood that. And like, yes, my parents were navigating the same thing, but they weren't navigating, actually they were probably navigating bullies in their own world, in their own age bracket, now that I'm growing up and realizing they are in every fucking age bracket. And obviously having the added challenges of having to find us shelter and food and support us and have fun with us. And I fucking still don't know how they did it. And yeah, so that's their journey wrapped up in my journey there. And yeah, so the crippling anxiety just is like the core of my story, isn't it? It was hard. It was brutal. Everyone was constantly saying like, you're not good enough and you're shit and all of this stuff. But anyway, so I did stuff anyways. I'm going to say that. I did hard stuff anyways. I did scary stuff anyways. Through all of that anxiety, but I always had like my rock, my mom, and she was my best friend, and it was amazing. Okay, so how this translates to my journey from Canadian to Australian again. So clearly my parents instilled in us the fact that we can do anything from what they've done, and that home is where you make it, really. So they left Hungary and they left their family because their family was emotionally like disconnected anyway. Our family back in Hungary was interesting. We were sent back every summer to go visit them and spend time with them, and they're elderly, older people, and they did their best to welcome us, and yeah, it was good. But I didn't realize how much turmoil was between them, and there was literally they were disappointed in my parents for moving to Canada, etc., etc. They thought that in Canada we had such wealth and all this stuff just because we had like a normal house. That's normal in Canada. It's like fucking 5 times the size of a house in Hungary. So I get where their perception was. So their perception of our parents was kind of to snub their nose at them. So I'm sure that was really hard for my parents. And now that I'm looking at it, the parallel of like what I wanted to talk about is like getting even stronger and stronger. So, they were kind of cut off from their family because their family kind of snubbed them. So they left everyone and everything they knew behind. And, oh my God. And it was really hard for them. And they did that just to have a better life, right? And a better life for us. So they really didn't go back. And if they did go back, there was always like emotional turmoil and fighting and all of that. Now my dad has moved back to Hungary now that I live in Australia. But I'll get to that in a second. So that's their journey, right? They left everything and everyone behind, and it was like cut all ties and cut all emotional ties and move on. If only it was that easy, but that's kind of what happened, but it was harder than it sounds, I'm sure. So that happened to them, and then now my journey, I've moved to Australia, and to me, there's like a lot of heartbreak there now that I'm trying to uncover and I really want to release. So this is my episode of releasing. So I'm releasing this so that I can make space for the new, because I haven't been able to release all of this. I've worked through a lot of this, but I'm just going to do this as a very cathartic experience to release it finally. And what happened was, I moved from where I lived in Ontario to Western Canada, and then I moved to Vegas, and then I moved around, and then I went to Europe, and then I moved to England, and then I just kept going, and then I went to Thailand, and then I got all the way to Australia, right? So there was all these little baby steps. I lived in Vegas, I lived in England, these are the longer periods I lived. Lived in Hungary for a bit on my own. That was revolutionary. That was holy shit, Hungary is amazing. When I was younger, you couldn't embrace any of it. It's I was hanging out with old people, and as a kid, and then I went back as a 20-something-year-old and just partied my ass off and met people and did all the fun things. And Budapest is the coolest fucking city ever. Honestly, old ruins that have been turned into bars, and parties up on hills overlooking the city with magnificent monuments and statues and stuff, and just raves in the bushes up there. It was hectic. It was so cool. And I'm so glad I experienced that, because that just gave me this contentment that it's a fucking great place, and I'm glad to be connected to it. And I got to see the other side of it. It was really, really cool. But I did find out how hard it is to live there as well. So I got a really good paying job, which would have been paying me $500 a month equivalent, right? And that was a good paying job. And so I decided that's not going to help me fund my travel. That's going to trap me here. So I kept moving, and I went to England, and that was a shit show. And then I kept moving, and I went to Thailand, did Muay Thai, and then, kept moving and came to Australia. So it was baby steps. I literally couldn't have gone straight from Ontario to Australia. I went to Western Canada, worked there, lived in the mountains, and it was exactly what I needed to do, these baby steps of moving around and around and around. and finding people and support and like what Western Canada did for me was open my eyes to, well, first of all, I met Australians, because you don't meet them in Ontario, but Australians always go to Vancouver and all of this, and I lived in Lake Louise, and so I met them, and I met their like carefree way of being, and their, you know, openness to talking to anyone, their openness to just living with nothing, or, you know, all of that. They're backpackers. So backpacker mindset really just sunk into the core of my brain. And I was like, I'm fucking doing this. This is happening, even though I'm terrified and I have anxiety and everything is fucking brutal. And, you know, I have up and down emotions. I have like bouts of depression, but I'm going to do this. And yeah, so that was really hectic to like experience. I was like, how have I not been exposed to this before? And what the fuck? This is bullshit. Why haven't I been exposed to this before? But yeah, I also had like a hectic experience in Cuba that like opened my mind to like, okay, well, that was fucked and a lot of bad shit happened to you, but you survived it and you can do it on your own. Yeah, that was all just like building up to the fact that I could handle it here. And then living in England too was really bad. It was really fun, but it was really like, really, you know, I learned what being skint means, and I learned what, you know, the banking system can do to foreigners. It doesn't really let you to have your own account and just all of this garbage. It's really hard to settle down in new places. And then obviously I came to Australia and I found that out with visas. So it took me like 4 years to become an Australian. I'm a permanent resident now and will be a citizen very soon. And so what was that? So I left Canada behind, and the part that hurts me and I wanted to shed was that, you know, I moved away from there. I ended up wherever I was, and my parents ended up moving away from Hamilton, Ontario as well, and they moved to Florida, and they were being snowbirds, so 6 months of the year they were down there for the good weather, and then they would go back to Canada for summer. But then they decided that the house needed to go because there was no point. Also, I love this fucking house. This house had a pool. I had like, you know, I had my own section in the back to just have my friends hang out with me and all of this. And it was beautiful. And so they ended up fixing it. They ended up putting like more flooring, and anyway, they sold it, and my heart fucking broke. It broke so much. But the real estate market had gone up to like, that house was like selling, I think they sold it before, but then after they sold it, which is really annoying, it went up to like nearly $1 million. That house is worth maybe $500,000, which I think is like, yeah, and like the real estate market everywhere went insane, right? So they sold it and they moved, and then that was like a piece of me, like in Canada, just gone. So like, and my freaking Malibu, I had this old made up Malibu and I loved it so fucking much, and that's gone. And, you know, my pool's gone, and I had 2 dogs that died while I was in Canada, and like they're gone, and like all these animals that I had, you know, and I just have to like let all that go. So my parents moved all our stuff into a storage locker, and that's fine, right? And they're living their best life in Florida, and my sister's still in Canada. She's living, you know, she moved out to rural property with a boyfriend, and then she got married, and I went back from England for her wedding. I flew back for a week just for her wedding, which was intense, but it was amazing. But it was intense, so much emotion, right? I've left all this behind, and now I'm there for a week, and I have to see it, and it was crazy. And I had this like horrendously weird feeling that I needed to just like take more things with me. And I took so much random shit with me, but I'm so glad I did. I took a little photo album with me, you know, little sentimental keepsakes, and I wish I brought so much more. There was so many dumb things that I packed. And I've also lost like a whole other suitcase like in Europe that had that shit in it. I mailed it to my grandpa, and then somehow it got lost because I knew I was coming here, and I was like, I can't take it all in a backpack. Anyway, so what happened to that all? Oh God, okay. I'm just going to get to it. So, and then I'm in Australia, I'm living my best life, and sort of struggling, honestly, with money to pay the $10,000 visa on like a fucking minimum wage because you can only work certain amounts on a student visa that I was on while I was getting my visa. It was a hectic time. So that's happening. I'm working hard, and then Corona hits and all of that stuff. And through that time, there was an accident, and my mom passes in Florida. My best friend. And yeah, so I'm just sharing that because, like, not only was, like, you know, I've lost all my friends and everyone that I know, like, just geographically, I'm not near them, but they're around. But then I lost my mom. And then, but it's okay. It's okay. So it was better that it happened that way, and she's doing, like, it worked out in the best way, because there was some potential health issues that might have come up anyway, and it felt kind of like the universe had given her an easier way because her mom had passed from a stroke. Well, she had a stroke and she spent most of her time in the hospital bed. This was the better option for my mom. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. So she had that happen. My dad had that happen to him, to see all of that. And horrendous day of my life. But before that, too, there was so much leading up to it where she, you know, was like, we met up in Australia. They came to Australia for a month, and we spent a month together, and we got to be mother and daughter in, like, a grown-up state. At the same time, you know, it was that struggle where daughter's trying to be a grown-up, or is feeling like she's a grown-up, and then mom comes in and tells her otherwise. And so there was a lot of that, but it was so nice. And we got a lot of chances to talk about things that we never would have. And like, that happened right before, you know, lockdowns happened. And then I thought Corona would be the worst of it. But yeah, so she got to do that. But she had this look on her face when I said, you know, we'd meet up other places around the world. Like, my parents met up with me when I was in Western Canada. They drove across America, like 23 hours, or no, probably more than that, like 4 days from Florida to Western Canada to meet up with me. We met up in China. We went to Tibet together. You know, like, it was, like, amazing. So, but yeah, so I said, we were in Australia, and I said we would meet up again other places and it would be amazing. And she had this look on her face that was like, no, I don't think so. And I didn't know why. And then I kind of found out why. And she was always in tune with these things. I don't think she knew exactly what either, but she felt something. And yeah, so that happened. And it just kind of shows you that the universe always has plans for you. And if you feel them, you feel them. And you just gotta still just let it happen. Or it's just like, that's all you can do, right? Surrender. So happened, and really leaned on the people. I really leaned on the people around me, and I really got, you know, so much love. And I couldn't have been in a better place to be able to handle that. So it kind of seems like me getting to where I am was meant to be so that I could handle things like that. So I feel like I just instilling that message in here that, you know, you are where you're meant to be. You do maybe want to be somewhere else, but you're meant to be where you are right now. You're meant to learn certain things so that you can be at that big dream, vision, place that you want to be at, and you can handle it, and you can hold that vibration, and you can support the way you need to support or be supported, or, you know, yeah, you just have to align all the pieces so that you can be there. And you don't know what they are until you work through them. And they can be great and they can be horrendous, but it's just life. And life is trying to guide you. So that was happening. I'm going to move on quickly. But yeah, I'm glad this is out there. So from there, I lost my mom. My dad became a completely different person. I never really talked on the phone with my dad before. And then we started talking on the phone all the time, like every day. And we learned so much more about each other. And he really stepped into the role and did amazing. And yeah, I couldn't have been luckier with that. Yeah, so now he's living in Hungary and he's living his best life. And that's all we can ask for, right? And the way that they raised me was to be able to, well, they really wanted to be able to allow me to just live my life how I wanted it to be lived. And they really did a fucking good job at that, because I'm living my life the way I want it to be lived. And they saw the importance of that, because when they were in Hungary, they didn't get that. They just kind of got, suffocated by, there's a lot of rules in Hungary and how you can behave, especially for women. Still, even when I was living there, 2016 or something, probably later than that. But yeah, and yeah, it's still the same. So they didn't feel like they could live the way that they wanted to and be who they were. So they fucking went to Canada, and they gave me that opportunity any chance that they could emotionally handle it. That's for sure. Which is like a lot, a lot to give your kids. So I'm very, very grateful. And I'm very grateful that we got to meet up in so many cool places and travel so many cool places. So yeah, we were like living the high life there as a family for a while. And now we've been separated, me and my dad, for a while. But soon he will come to Australia, or I'll go to Hungary and all of that. So why I wanted to shed this, obviously, was, Canada. I left Canada behind, and Canada shattered. It shattered into a million pieces. Yes, I still have people that I talk to, and I still love them, and I'm so heartily connected to Canada still. But yeah, after that happened, our storage locker got thrown out in Canada because I don't even know. They changed owners, and then there was a credit card issue, and then they just went, fuck it, I'll just throw out this whole family's entire life heartlessly, and I don't give a fuck. And I'm not bitter about it at all, clearly. I'm really fucking bitter about it. My dad had recorded our whole lives on video. Well, my whole childhood and our whole childhood as he could when we were in Canada, and methodically fucking documented it. And that's all gone. My whole bedroom's gone. There's so much stuff in there that I miss. All of my, past is just gone. And it's brutal. It's just gone. But yeah, that's not nice, is it? So what do I learn from this? I don't know. As I'm feeling these emotions, I don't know. That, stuff doesn't matter. People matter. That people are your people no matter where they are in the world. Where they are in the world doesn't fucking matter. If I needed my people would come on a plane. Or if not, they would let me come there, And I think that's just the biggest backbone of how people travel and why. But there is that transition where you're backpacking potentially as a 20-something-year-old, and you have your parents backing you in a way, even if they don't know they are. You can always go home, right? But when home doesn't exist anymore, or when home isn't an option anymore, then what do? Then you have to make your own home. You have to make your own home wherever the fuck you are. And home is just people. Really, it is people. I found my people. My partner is my people. My dog too. I wanted simplicity, and I wanted love in my life, and I wanted the ability to keep living my life the way that I wanted to live it. And I just didn't realize that that's what my parents wanted for me too. Until recently, having an adult conversation with my dad, it became evident. Yeah. So this is my heartfelt, release episode. And just know that if you do want to travel, if you do want to move, it's so worth it. It's hard, and weird, brutal things will happen while you're doing it. But like, if you stay in the same place, those things are still going to happen. So you might as well, swallow the fear and just do it anyway. Doing big things like that aren't big if you don't think that they're big. I took little steps. I did what gave me the least friction. Moving to West Canada because I got a job offer, or I found myself a job offer, was the mode of the path of least resistance. And that path of least resistance led me there so that I could find Australia as more than I thought it was. Like the backpackers telling me what Australia really was like, and it just made me want it more. So like what I thought Australia was before I came was, beaches and everyone having fires on the beach and just hanging out in groups and people playing on guitar, which is a lot of the truth at the same time. But there's a lot of fire bans. You can't have fires on beaches, really. You can go do, that was my vision of it pretty much. But the only way that you can find those things is you find yourself a group of four-wheel drivers, and so 4x4 drivers for Canadians, and off-roaders, and you find that, and you find the beaches where you can have the fires, and I don't know, you find the hippies. You go to Byron Bay, you go to Noosa, which I haven't been to yet, so let me know how that is, people. But yeah, I lived in Sydney, I've lived in Melbourne, I've lived in Darwin, I've now lived in Perth. So I've been to Brisbane, not Brisbane, I've been to Cairns. So I've been in every state. I've been to Tasmania. I drove around all of Tasmania. I've seen all of Australia. I've been in the centre of Australia. I've been in the capital city, the ACT in Canberra. I bought my first motorcycle in Australia there, my M209, and drove back to fucking Sydney, so that's 3 hours, and drove from Sydney to Melbourne, and I've done every corner of this freaking continent, and it's amazing, but it's not exactly what you've been sold if you're Canadian. Yes, everyone doesn't care, but the other thing, Sydney was so interesting. That's probably where I get this friction of what the marketing was and what it is. So Sydney has Bondi Beach, and Bondi Beach is sold to I've been just relaxing and surfing and all of this stuff, but Sydney is fucking hustle city, hustle yourself to death kind of city. Wear suits, wear pretty dresses, wear heels, go party, drink a lot, go to the pub, which is typical Australian culture. But it's go to the races and be a douche. And I just didn't expect that. But at the same time, it's Toronto on the beach, Toronto with a beach. And I didn't expect that, but I enjoyed it heaps more than I enjoyed Toronto. So it's fucking cool. It is. But all the cities are kind of like that. And everyone works a lot harder here than it seems like they would, because we all think the no worries Australian fucking kickback attitude, and there's a lot of that, but there is a lot of contrast, and I really love it here. I love Perth so much. I found so many empowered, powerful women here that just want a beautiful life that's relaxing, but they can do and achieve and shoot for the fucking stars and live those big dreams. And yeah, it's just fucking amazing here. I love it here. The weather's amazing. Summer was amazing, and winter is literally the sunniest. I'm just looking outside now. The sunniest time, even though everyone dreads winter here apparently. This is what I've been looking for. A little bit of cool weather, but some fucking sunshine at the same time. That's all I need. And I can still go to the beach. And that's what I've wanted. And there's also, it's like the biggest state ever, so you can just go off-roading and outback driving and camping, which is not something I would have done in Canada, because fuck that in the winter and fuck that in the summer, because summer is like only 28 degrees maybe, but it's too hot once you just went down to minus 20 or like minus 15. And yeah, that contrast was too much for me. So I'm really enjoying the stable weather here and the stable people here and the communities and the like people in business here in Perth. It's just incredible. Everything moves at like a slow pace outside of business, but business here moves fast, and I love it so much. So that's my journey, basically. My Canadian roots, my Hungarian roots, my traveler roots from my parents. Finding a new home was really hard, but I found my new home, and you can too, no matter where you want to go. I really highly recommend that you consider the weather to wherever country you want to move to. And things like diet, like what do they eat? Like I went to America and I thought I could live in America, but I can't. Like the quality of food there is so poor. And it was so cool. We just like shotguns and rode dirt bikes in Vegas and like went to New Orleans and did cool shit. Like America's so cool, but the finding good quality food there and people that like to go to the gym, and that was just not something I found. And that's just my vibe. So that's huge, and like that's a lot easier to find in Australia. I think that's why I resonate with Australia so much. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed my journey. It was a bit heartbreaking there in the middle. I hope that was okay for you guys. And please just go, just do the thing, and do it with fear if you have to. And honestly, it will just unfold in the most beautiful, beautiful way. It will be everything that you want it to be and more than you knew that it could be. And just go find your own people. If you're not feeling it where you are, then go find your own people. Just like on the internet, you can find your own people, write your own community. But it is so much better when you find them in person, and they'll go camping with you, and they'll go dirt biking with you. They'll do whatever the fuck random hobby that you want. You'll find those people. And like people here twirl fire on the beach, and that's like a thing in a community. And there's like bush doofs where like there's raves in the bushes in the outback and just really cool shit. So you can find those people anywhere, but find your people. And thank you so much for listening and tuning in, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so freaking grateful to have shared this space with you today. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would absolutely love it if you join me on Instagram. I'd love to connect in the DMs and chat all things transformation. Hear some of your stories, your journey. It would be so, so cool. It would also mean the world to me if you did just click the little follow bell on Spotify or head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a quick review. With your help, we can help more people feel the incredible depths of transformation through stories and teachings shared here. And, please remember, you can do anything you hear here too. It is not for just other people to do. You can do it too. Thank you so much, gorgeous soul. See you on the next episode.